Hey, what's up everyone? This is Ill Factor from beatacademy.com. In this video, I'm going to share with you a mixing template that I normally use when mixing my projects. Now, even though this is going to be in Ableton Live, you could follow along no matter what DAW that you're currently using. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Now, having your program start off with a template can be a really helpful tool to capture any sparks of inspiration and to help you hit the ground running with your creativity. So templates can be really helpful in having certain instruments, sounds, or even specific audio routing already there loaded up when your software loads up. Now, throughout my years of producing music, I've had many different templates. I've used many different types of settings and different presets loaded up. But currently in this season of life that I'm in right now, this is exactly how I like to have my Ableton Live load up. I start off with one audio track in case I just need to put a vocal melody or scratch vocal idea down, and a couple of return tracks. So you have A through F, I believe, and my master. Now, the reason why I have it set up with this is because I'm currently right now in the stage of where I kind of like to grab the tools that I want at that very moment, and I can navigate to them pretty quickly because I already have so many different bookmarks of sounds and presets using Ableton Live 10's collections. So I can immediately go to specific plugins and presets that I already have, or even sounds, and just drag and drop and drop them on there. So with that in mind, once I've got my beat in place and I'm actually ready to start doing some mixing, I can head over to my presets here, and I've created a mixing template, both for my vocals and my mix buses. And I'm going to explain exactly what that means in a little bit. So here I have my mix buses. So I just simply click this Ableton project and I can drag that into any project that I'm working on. In this case, this blank project. And here we have my drum bus, bass bus, synth, keys, guitars, etc. And all effects, the swooshes, the bleeps, and the creeps, and the weeps, and all that stuff. We'll go through there. And then what I do is I have another vocal template that I'll also use. And those are for tracking, and those are also my vocal buses as well. So all the lead vocals, the verse, the pre, the chorus, and the bridge lead will get routed to this group track here, or the same thing as a bus, right? Same thing with my background vocals. I have about 8 different background vocal tracks already in there, grouped up, and my harmony vocal. Automatically going to make it easier so I don't have to create all these individual tracks every single project when I want to track vocals into Ableton Live or get ready to mix them. And this is pretty much my go-to setup. Now, let me explain a little bit about summing, because that's what we're talking about here when we're talking about mix buses. Summing is, the way I like to think about it is, if each individual track in your project or in your song was a river, think of that river ending up in a bigger body of water where maybe multiple rivers end up there as well. So a kick drum, a snare, a drum loop, a percussive loop, all those are different little rivers that end up in one big body of water, maybe an ocean, right? So each bus is that big body of water. And so all the drums in my project, I'll just route over to this drum bus, and all the basses in the project I route over here to this bass bus 2. And so the way I technically have it set up is each of these are just basically audio tracks. And this audio track is set to no input, so that there's no input marked in there until you routed what is going to be sent to that bus. So let's say that this track here is a drum loop. So I would simply go ahead, click the output of that, and route it to my drum bus. The moment you do that, you notice you now have a monitoring option here for your bus. So I simply click input. That way I can constantly always monitor everything being sent to the drum bus. Hope this makes sense. So now what I do in here is I can put certain plugins that I always kind of like to use to treat that specific bus. In this case, I'm using the Slate Digital virtual mix bus plugin. This is part of the virtual console control, which emulates console saturation. And so I have this on every bus and assign it to a group. Since this is drum bus, I have it set to 1, drum bus 1, group 1. And then what I make sure to do is on every drum track or every track going to the drum bus, I place a Slate Digital VCC channel plugin, and I make sure I send that to group 1. I hope I haven't lost you yet. Now, why do this? Why not just send everything to the master? Well, let me go ahead and load up a session where I'm using these templates and in place so you can kind of see how this all works and put it into practical use. Now, here's a project that I'm currently working on. Now, once I've gotten my arrangement in place and laid down, and I've got the bare essentials, everything that I'm happy with production-wise, I can then simply just drag and drop the Mixbus project template that I've created, and then just begin to route the individual sounds or tracks to that specific bus. And what we're doing is we're creating summing, right? We're summing all the audio to one specific audio track. So drum bus 1, 2, 3, and 5, just as I mentioned before, are right here. And what I've done is I've gone to each of the drum elements, such as this drum rack here, track 1, and I made sure that I'm routing the output instead of the master by default. I'm going to go ahead and choose drum bus 1. And now all my drums and percussive elements are going to this drum bus. So let me just hit play, and you can see how everything is routed to its designated bus. Now, as you can see, all the drums are running straight to the drum bus here. And that way I can process all the drums together. So on the drum bus itself, we have, once again, the preset that came loaded with it, the mix bus, but then I started adding the Slate Digital FGA EQ. And right after that, I've got a tan compressor just to kind of glue all the drums together a little bit. And it's a great free compressor that you can get from Acoustica Audio. So you can head over to that website. This is a free compressor, and I was really just impressed with the overall tone of that compressor. And the bass bus, similar thing. I've got the mix bus here, and this is group 2. So what that means is if I go to my bass channels, if I go to my bass track here, we can go ahead and see that I'm running a virtual Slate VCC channel plugin. This is the channel, and it's going to get routed to group 2 because bus 2 has the mix bus. There's a lot of buses going on here, but just follow with me. So this is why it's set to group 2, and I'm using the revival to thicken the bottom end and saturating some of that bass so that I can get a nice little growl happening in the verses. Same thing going on with the synth. I just continue to use the mix bus VCC channel on all of them. Now, some people, you might be thinking, why are you doing this? Why not just use a group? You know, why don't you group all the drums together and just treat the group track like that? Well, I totally get it, and that's fine. Again, I'm sharing with you my personal workflow, my personal mixing template, the way I like to have everything lived out like this. And the reason why I do this when I'm mixing in the box, and that simply means that you're mixing completely inside the DAW. The reason why I work like that is just my mindset's coming from a world where I was mixing like this in Pro Tools before completely mixing in the box in Ableton Live. And another bigger reason is simply just because I like having a bird's eye view of everything going on. With the groups, you kind of have to just expand it and then lower it in, and you can still have that, so to speak. But I just simply liked having everything laid out this way. I can still have all my visuals, my drums, and I could just easily get access to them, mix them, especially if I'm using a outboard surface controller with faders on there. I can have my hands on those specific tracks and just view the buses, and it just makes it just gives me that mindset that makes it easier for me to kind of get an overall good balance. So not saying that this is the way to have it set up, it's just my personal approach to mixing. Now, I have all my sends here, and what I usually do is I mark the ones that I'm using for vocals, meaning my sends effects, in this case, a plate reverb, an echo delay, and some vocal doubling, I would kind of just paint them yellow or change the color to yellow, so I know that those effects are particularly being used by my vocals, and green is being used by everything else. So the bus tracks, the audio tracks, they are being routed to my master fader. So I could have easily just created another audio track and called this my stereo bus and have everything routed to that. But the problem when you do that in Ableton Live is that you can't solo your return tracks and just hear the return track effect. For instance, here we can have just soloing the return track, and you only hear the return track effect. When you route things to an internal audio track and call that a stereo bus, it just simply doesn't work that way. Don't know why. So I'm treating my master fader as my stereo bus. So that means that everything ends up here. So this is the ocean. This is the big body of water, right? All of these individual channels. So we have all these little rivers, the drums and all these are all my little rivers. So I'm going to highlight them and just squeeze them really small. These are all the little rivers that end up in these bigger streams of bodies of water. And these bigger bodies of water end up flowing right to the ocean, the master output. Hope that makes sense. And on the master output, I'm doing a little bit of just some, overall quality control here. And so I've got another mix bus, but this one is set to none. And I'm using the Brit 4K, the SSL G channel on this. A little bit of some saturation to just, warm up the low mid. And then I'm using the Slate Digital Gray compressor. Really love this compressor here on my master bus to just kind of glue the overall track together. And then I have a Fab Filter EQ to do some just surgical precision EQ. And what I'm doing after that is I use another EQ by IK Multimedia. And this is the master EQ, the 432. Real nice and subtle. I didn't want anything too drastic. I like using this EQ on the master channel after the Fab. They make a great combo. This or the Diamond EQ from Acoustica Audio. I'll interchangeably use one or two. But it's really good to just add a little bit of touch of specific frequencies. And then I have a limiter. But then I love using the Isotope Tonal Balance plugin. And this is a great thing to have because this is going to tell you more or less where the balance is set in your track. And if I've done this correctly, we should have a good overall balance of the tone. I mean, basically the frequency spectrum shouldn't be bass heavy or too many highs or things like that. So I'll play the track again. So I'm noticing that there's a spike here around 400 Hertz. So I can use any of my EQ to dial in that frequency and boost or cut, whether I want more of that or less of that. Now, if you wanted to create a customized template that'll load up every time you start Ableton Live, simply create that template or create that project. Maybe you want to add 12 drum racks or specific plugins or certain tools that you want to have on hand. Set that up and then simply go to your preference window and go over to the File Folder tab. And on the very top, you'll find Save Current Set as Default, meaning the way you have it currently set up right now, the minute you hit save, it will always load up that same way every time you open Ableton Live. That's how you can have the way you like to have it set up show up every time you open the program. So at the beginning of the video, I shared with you my mix bus template that I can easily access and drag into any project when I'm ready to mix. Then we talked about summing audio. So I can take the tracks that I'm ready to route to those buses and just choose the output so that those multiple tracks sum up on one individual track. The little rivers flowing into the bigger bodies of water. And then I shared with you some of the presets that I use on those bus tracks and my master fader to help balance and glue the whole mix together. I hope this video has been helpful for you, and as my gift to you, I'd love to send you a sample pack of sounds that I've put together over some of my projects over the past year. And these sample packs are filled with construction kits, loops, one-hits, transition effects, and it's absolutely yours 100% free. Just click the link below in the description box to download this today. And they're 100% royalty free and can be used in any DAW. They're just simply WAV files that you can drag and drop into your projects and use right away. So click the link below in the description box to download this sample pack, or you can visit www.beatacademy.com/pack. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.